What if I told you that one of the biggest medical breakthroughs of the century never actually existed? That the world's most respected investors, politicians, and business leaders were all fooled by a technology that didn't work, not even a little. Imagine a company that promised to save lives, democratize healthcare, and change the world, only to become one of the most shocking corporate scandals in history. This isn't fiction. This is the real story of Theranos, the startup that rose like a miracle and collapsed like a myth. Tonight, we're going deep inside the lie that fooled the world, because understand, this scandal may be the only way to protect yourself from the next one. Theranos didn't begin as a scam. It began as a dream, a bold, inspiring vision to revolutionize healthcare. Elizabeth Holmes, the woman behind the idea, was young, charismatic, and shockingly ambitious. She dropped out of Stanford at 19 with one mission: to fix the world of medical testing. Her idea was simple, but world-changing. A tiny machine that could run hundreds of medical tests using just a few drops of blood. No needles, no lab visits, no waiting days for results. It was the future of diagnostics packed into a small, sleek box, and people wanted to believe in it desperately. Holmes was unlike anyone in Silicon Valley. She dressed like Steve Jobs, spoke softly but confidently, and built a public image around the idea of courage, innovation, and purpose. She wasn't selling a product. She was selling hope. She talked about saving lives, helping the poor, and bringing healthcare to the world. She didn't speak in technical jargon. She spoke in emotion. And in a world hungry for simplicity, hungry for miracles, hungry for the next big tech revolution, she became a symbol of possibility. Investors flocked to her. Billionaires, former U.S. secretaries of state, retired generals, they all joined her board. They believed her story. They believed her brilliance. They believed that the future of medicine had just been born. But what they didn't know was that behind all the glamour, all the hype, and all the powerful names was a secret reality. The technology Holmes promised did not exist. Not even close. Inside Theranos labs, chaos ruled. Machines malfunctioned constantly. Tests produced wildly inaccurate results. Employees were pressured into silence. And anything that contradicted the dream was hidden from investors, partners, and the public. Theranos didn't just exaggerate progress, it fabricated it. When their blood analyzer failed, they secretly used commercially available machines instead, pretending their own device had done the work. They diluted samples, manipulated data, and rewrote results. They built an empire on an illusion, and protected that illusion at any cost. Holmes was not alone. She brought in Sunny Balwani, a man twice her age, as president and CEO. Balwani ruled with fear, firing employees who raised questions, threatening those who doubted the company's claims, and creating a culture of secrecy that kept the truth sealed away. Holmes inspired people with her vision. Balwani controlled them through intimidation. Together, they crafted a fortress of lies strong enough to fool some of the most powerful people on the planet. The turning point came when Theranos landed a partnership that shocked the medical world. Walgreens, one of the largest pharmacy chains in the country, agreed to put Theranos testing centers inside its stores. Suddenly, the fantasy was becoming reality. Theranos ads flooded TV screens. The media hailed Holmes as the youngest female billionaire in history. She graced magazine covers, spoke at global conferences, and became a symbol of female empowerment in a male-dominated tech world. Everything looked perfect. Everything sounded perfect. But the science behind it still didn't work. The more Theranos grew in the spotlight, the more desperate Holmes and Balwani became to keep the truth hidden. Employees who raised concerns were labeled as disloyal. Scientists who questioned the accuracy of results were silenced. Whistleblowers were threatened with lawsuits. The company became a maze of secrecy where truth was treated like the enemy. The gap between what Theranos promised and what it could actually deliver was growing by the day, and it was becoming impossible to hide. Patients began receiving test results that made no sense. People were told they had diseases they didn't have. Others were reassured about conditions they actually suffered from. Imagine being told you might be pregnant when you're not, or being told your heart medication is unnecessary when you desperately need it. Medical testing isn't just numbers, it's life and death. And Theranos was playing with both. The illusion finally began to crack when a small group of insiders refused to stay silent. They reached out to investigative journalists, revealing the truth hidden behind locked laboratory doors. The resulting investigation exposed everything: the fake data, the malfunction machines, the misleading demonstrations, and the internal manipulation. The world watched in disbelief as the miracle startup unraveled. Theranos wasn't a revolutionary company. It was a carefully scripted lie. When the truth was published, the fallout was immediate and explosive. Investors panicked. Partners cut ties. Walgreens sued Theranos for breach of contract. The public felt betrayed. How could a company worth billions collapse overnight? How could respected leaders, veteran investors, and entire corporations be fooled so easily? The answer lay in the perfect storm: a charismatic founder, a mission that sounded noble, a technology that seemed magical, and a world that desperately wanted to believe. Holmes responded by denying everything. She insisted the technology worked. She insisted that critics simply didn't understand. But evidence doesn't lie. And when regulators entered the labs, what they found was far worse than anyone imagined: machines that produced inconsistent results, protocols that violated medical standards, and a company that had been testing real patients using devices that failed most of the time. Holmes had not only lied to investors, she had put lives at risk. The crash of Theranos became a global spectacle, a courtroom drama that symbolized the dangers of blind trust. Holmes and Balwani faced multiple charges related to fraud, conspiracy, and lying to investors. And for the first time, the world saw the woman behind the brand, not as a visionary, not as a prodigy, but as someone who allowed ambition to override ethics. Someone who believed the end justified the means. Someone who convinced herself that one day the technology would work, so the lies were acceptable for now. But the truth is, deception doesn't become acceptable just because the dream feels noble. A lie wrapped in hope is still a lie, and the consequences of those lies were devastating. Patients suffered emotionally and physically. Investors lost hundreds of millions. Employees who tried to speak up had their careers destroyed. And the credibility of the biotech industry took a massive hit. Theranos didn't collapse because the idea was bad. It collapsed because the leadership refused to face reality. They wanted to change the world so badly that they denied the laws of science, ethics, and basic decency. They wanted the glory before earning the success. They wanted the headlines before building the truth. The world didn't demand perfection, it demanded honesty. And that was the one thing Theranos never gave. As the trial unfolded, the world learned just how deeply the deception ran. Emails, internal documents, and witness testimonies painted a picture of a company built on constant manipulation. Demonstrations shown to investors were staged. Data presented to partners was altered. Claims about military use were fabricated. Holmes created a world where truth was optional and ambition was everything. But ambition without integrity is a ticking time bomb. Even as the evidence mounted, Holmes tried to maintain her image: calm, compassionate, misunderstood. She blamed others. She blamed pressure. She blamed idealism. But the core truth remained: she made choices that hurt real people. And in the world of healthcare, harm is unforgivable. Theranos serves as one of the most powerful cautionary tales of the modern era. It reminds us that not all innovation is honest, not all genius is real, and not every breakthrough is what it seems. Just because a company is valued at billions doesn't mean its technology works. Just because a founder speaks with confidence doesn't mean they speak the truth. And just because everyone else believes the story doesn't mean you should. The world wants miracles, but miracles don't come from shortcuts. They come from science, discipline, transparency, and time. Theranos promised magic, but in medicine, magic is deadly. The most dangerous lies are the ones we desperately want to believe. Theranos succeeded because it offered hope wrapped in simplicity. A future where healing was effortless, a world where a single drop of blood held all the answers. But the future of healthcare won't come from pretending. It will come from those who dare to face the truth, even when it's complicated, slow, or imperfect. Theranos wanted to change the world, but instead, it became a lesson that the world will never forget. So what does the Theranos scandal teach us? It teaches us that in the pursuit of innovation, truth cannot be optional. It teaches us that charisma is not competence, and it reminds us that the biggest red flag in business is a founder who refuses to be questioned. The world was fooled once, but you don't have to be fooled again. This has been Wealth Nexus, bringing you the stories that protect your wallet. Sharpen your judgment, and keep you one step ahead of financial deception. If you found this breakdown valuable, stay with us, because the world of money is full of mysteries, and we're just getting started. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and above all, stay wealthy.